We recently spent 3 weeks traveling around Mongolia, and we wanted to make this video to share with you all some of what we learned about traveling in Mongolia, because before we arrived in the country, we actually had a hard time finding a lot of good information about how to travel this country online.
Why is no one here? Doesn't everyone know this place is awesome?
During our time in the country, we did the whole gamut of travel styles. We explored Ulaanbaatar, the capital city, on our own. We hired a private driver to take us around the surrounding areas. And then we also even joined a group tour to do the Gobi Desert. And then after all of that, we did our own self-led adventure through central Mongolia, camping and driving by ourselves.
We learned a lot by exploring the country in these different ways, so we've gathered a bunch of questions that we had before we traveled to the country, and we also asked you guys to send in questions as well, so we've collected all these questions and we are going to spend this video answering them all. So let's dive right in because there's tons of good information to share. When is the best time to visit Mongolia?
So we went in June, which I think was really awesome weather, not too hot and not too cold.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people usually try to time their visits so that they can align with some of the festivals that are happening.
I think there's a big festival I think it's mostly in July, the Nadam Festival. Yeah. Our experience in June was incredible weather, and I've also heard from some folks online who've commented on our videos that we were really lucky to have gone in June, because July and August, a lot of the places that we went to, like on our own, like Ogi Lake, get a lot busier with locals because the kids are out of school, I think. So I do think that June was a pretty wicked time to go, and that was just lucky for us, but it was wonderful. What was your budget in Mongolia? So we've got a couple different categories here. We had to look at our notes to see what we spent. On average, we spent about $30 US a day on accommodations. And we stayed in like 4 different places in Ulaanbaatar over our time there.
I wouldn't say it was like the nicest places, but it was mostly Airbnbs, and
we
it was
did
just
Airbnb.
for Nicole and I, and it was a little bit outside like the main areas.
Sometimes, yeah.
So
yeah, you could definitely go like luxury and get like super nice, beautiful hotels with breakfast and all that stuff. We prefer Airbnbs, so that's what we stuck to most of the time. Food, honestly, in the capital city of Ulaanbaatar, we found food to be really affordable.
Yeah, it was actually really, really nice.
Yeah, it's like a couple of dollars to buy a dish at most of the just kind of local eateries.
For the 2 of us to eat like a lunch or a dinner was like $10 or $12.
Yeah, not
like
even.
that.
Total.
Yeah.
To be fair, we don't really buy drinks. Like we go in, we buy 2 plates of food and we leave. But you can make it really affordable.
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting.
Okay, transportation is another budget category to chat about. So taxis were really, really affordable within the city. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was only, we used an app that like made sure that we didn't have to negotiate
pricing
like in person.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an Uber. It's like their version of Uber. I think it was called UbiCab or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was only like $3 or $4 to go anywhere around Ulaanbaatar.
We were in the car for like 45 minutes one day.
Ulaanbaatar traffic is terrible.
So bad. All right, tours. A lot of people have asked about the cost of tours. So as we said earlier, we did just 1 tour. We went all the way to the Gobi Desert. It was a 5-day tour. The cost of that tour, at least when we went, is $650 US per person.
Yeah.
Obviously pricing will change with the years, but.
Yeah, and we also had 5 guests on that tour.
That's
so
true.
most times people will, when you sign up for tours, it'll get a lot cheaper when you have more and more people.
If you basically fill the car,
Yeah.
the more bodies in the car, the better the price
And we
is.
filled the car.
We filled the car.
We have officially left the road, like the paved road. We're on what they call the natural roads here in Mongolia, which pretty much means there are no roads.
It's like a washboard, man.
Activities. One day we went out and we hired a driver for the day to take us around like a rural part near Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah.
And we paid 110 US for the driver for the whole day. We had
It was 80 US.
80 US.
80 US, which was actually, I think, really affordable.
Yeah?
Because we connected with a guy on Facebook.
We found him on
and he was
Facebook.
like private driver.
Yeah, we talked to him on Viber, I think.
Super.
Viber was like the way to get a hold of people a lot of the time there, we've discovered.
Yeah.
I talked to him on Viber and booked with him, and he just used like his personal car, took us around for the day. He didn't guide us, he was just a driver, but he was wonderful and lovely.
And like we were able to like make up the itinerary, whatever we wanted.
He
if we
gave
wanted
us
to
good
see
suggestions
more.
along the way, but like we made our itinerary.
Yeah, his contact info is in our video about that.
That's true. We'll link that.
I think it's like a side thing, so I don't know if he's actually doing it. So maybe we're just bringing people to him.
And he's like, I don't do that anymore. And then the other activity that we can talk about cost for is we rented a Land Cruiser, like a 4x4 with a pop-up tent and all the camping gear. And that cost us $110 US per day for the rental.
We'll talk a bit more about the rental later on because I know a lot of people have asked about that. And I gotta say, I'll tell you right now, the $110, that was probably the cheapest we found.
Oh, I was gonna say it's worth it.
100% worth it, but it's probably the cheapest we
was.
found compared to other rental companies.
Yeah, that was the most affordable we could
We'll
find.
talk about that later.
Okay. How much time would you recommend in Mongolia?
I would say like 1 day and 1 to 2 days in Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah.
And then a tour of some sort.
Some
Definitely
sort.
to go to the I think to go to the Gobi.
I mean, the Gobi was so cool.
Because it's so far away.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do the Gobi Desert like solo.
Yeah.
No, it would just be, honestly, we spent so much time on natural roads where there is just
nothing.
Like, how would we have got there on our own? I have no idea. Like, you need a local driver who's familiar with the area and the landscape. I think we did our Gobi Desert tour in 5 days. Most are 6. I think
I've seen some at 8 because like on our 5-day tour, like the last day was literally driving all the way back.
All the way back.
So if you do like a 6 or a 7, I think they might do like more of a loop.
Break it up.
And then you kind of have more driving, like just stops along the way back to Ulaanbaatar.
So let's say 7 days for a tour of one of the regions. Like, you can do so many cool things in Mongolia, but we would recommend the Gobi.
Oh, and also I want to say the day trip that we did to Terrell's National Park was awesome.
Actually, I would say that had we had a bit more foresight and planning and all these things, I would recommend staying in Terrell's National Park for a night or two. There are some really beautiful tourist camps there. You can go like luxury to budget there. And I think it would have been stunning to spend a couple of nights there. So if you have the time, a couple nights in Terrell's National Park, a day in Ulaanbaatar, maybe 2. A week-long tour, and then I mean, if you're down for it, renting the Land Cruiser was our favorite thing we did in Mongolia, hands down. So if you've got the time for it, what is that? I mean, really, that probably comes to like more
to
than
14 days,
yeah,
like somewhere in that
weeks.
range.
Would be stellar. It would be stellar. What's the food like? Man, we've had this question a lot. Like, a lot of people ask about the food.
The food is good for me because I like meat-heavy stuff.
Because Filipino and Mongolian food and Filipino food had some similarities in terms of meat to everything else ratio.
There's a lot of meat in Mongolian food.
I wish we could be here like saying like, yeah, vegan and vegetarian, you're gonna be fine. I actually wouldn't say that. If you're joining a tour, I would think you'd need to make it very like explicit to your tour operator that you're vegan or vegetarian to make sure they can accommodate that. And I'm pretty sure they all can. You're probably just gonna eat a lot of pasta or something.
There's a really good restaurant I recommend. It's called Khan Booze.
It's like a chain, like local Mongolian food. It's very affordable.
Yeah, it's not like kind of fast foody, but like it's sit down. Actually, not really. You order at the front. And
they just hand you a plate, and then you sit yourself down. Like, it's nothing high class, but it's a cool way to try some Mongolian food.
Yeah, because they got like a big, the one we went to, they had a big like menu. It was all lit up, and you could see what the food looks like with pricing right beside it.
Very important, because the Mongolian language is Cyrillic, so we read it and we can't understand anything. How was the process of arriving into the country? Mongolia has one airport, one like major airport, and that's in Ulaanbaatar. Or Ulaanbaatar. I know we're saying that wrong, but
it's a nice airport.
It's a great airport, but it's like in the middle of nowhere, an hour away from the city, it feels like. So for us, when we arrived, we had pre-arranged a transport from the airport to the city with our accommodation, host, because it's quite expensive to get we looked into like getting a cab and stuff.
Yeah, you can get like a taxi.
So expensive,
we recommend if you have like your hotel book, hopefully you do, when you arrive, have them like see if they can do like some sort of transport service or transfer service because it was so much easier. You can, if you arrive at the airport and you have no plans, you can pick up a taxi there or like a shuttle bus. Like you can't miss the people that like are
ready to bring you to the city.
They'll be there. I'm assuming you arrive like in the normal part of the day.
Yeah, like the normal major times of the day. Visas was also a question that we got about the process for entering into the country, and visas were simple. We didn't have to get anything ahead of time. As Canadians, we were allowed to be in the country for 30 days visa free. I think for Americans it's 90 days, and I took a quick look online. It looks like pretty much everybody is allowed in for like a minimum of 2 weeks without a visa, but obviously just take a look based on your own country. ATMs when we arrived in the country, currency. So the currency in Mongolia is called tugruk, and I think it would be hard to get tugruk in a lot of the world. So if you aren't able to get it in your home country, don't worry. When you land in Ulaanbaatar, you can just head to an ATM. You'll pay some fees, but you can get cash out easily. SIM cards and data. So at the time of our visit to Mongolia, we had really old phones that only accepted physical SIMs. We couldn't do eSIMs, which was really unfortunate. So when we landed at Ulaanbaatar airport, we were able to go to like a telecommunication company at the airport. Thankfully, they were open and we were able to get a physical SIM from them. But had we had the capability to do an eSIM, we would have much preferred to do that and just like have it all figured out before we arrived into Mongolia. So if you're like us and you prefer to have your data figured out before you arrive in the country, then we would highly recommend Olafly, who is the sponsor of today's video.
If you're not familiar with what an eSIM is, it's basically a SIM card that you can download straight onto your phone so that you have data like when you're abroad, and you can actually start all that process up before you even jump onto the plane, so that when you are finally arriving at the airport, you can just activate it and then boom,
data.
You have data. It's like, it feels like the future, but I know this technology's been out there for a long time.
It has been. To the point where I know a lot of phones now don't actually even accept physical SIM cards. We're just like slowly catching up over here.
And if you're wondering if you need data at all in Mongolia, the answer is 100% yes. You are going so far, like such long distances, and a lot of times we found that like it's beautiful to take in the scenery, but at the same time, I also want to be able to like take some photos, send it to people like back at home.
Listen to a podcast while I look out the window, or a book on my,
And also, of course, navigating. Like we absolutely needed data when we were navigating Central Mongolia and the Land Cruiser.
By ourselves,
And then also, I remember you even had a phone call at the top of the sand dunes with your family.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, the sand dunes are like one of the most incredible things we saw in Mongolia, so I like called my whole family up. So yeah, obviously we're able to use data to stay connected and enjoy things like podcasts, but also for safety features, right? Like being in the middle of nowhere by ourselves when we were in the Land Cruiser, like we obviously needed data to make sure that we had some way to get a hold of people if something went awry.
And why we recommend Olafly is just because that they're so easy to set up. You buy it and you get a QR code, and then you just scan that QR code with your phone, and then I think in like 2 or 3 minutes you have data.
Yeah, and it's
on your phone.
Ready for your phone. You just click activate when you're ready to use it, and you're done.
And it would be like it helps us because like we don't have to fumble around figuring out where the telecom centers are at the airport, if they're open.
Yeah.
And
it's honestly such a hassle to get physical SIMs. So our preference is definitely eSIMs. Now that our phones are actually capable of it, we've upgraded.
If you want to check out Olafly, you can use our code Nicole and Miko. We'll put it somewhere on the screen for 5% off, or you can click the link down in the description below and that'll automatically give you the discount code right away.
Next question is, how far in advance did you book things?
So for us, not very far, considering we had no idea we were going to Mongolia up until like 5 days before.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you gotta watch that video if you want to see the full story, but basically we kind of messed up our visas going to Vietnam and eventually ended up going to Mongolia. And it was actually probably the best travel mistake we've made.
We've like ever made. At the time we were so bummed, and now I'm so stinking glad that we got to go to Mongolia. So we did not plan anything in advance.
No.
Once we knew we were going to Mongolia, we started to reach out to different tour companies because we obviously started doing research on what to do there, and discovered that going on tours for us, the Gobi Desert was like a big bucket list item. So we started looking at that, and to do that, we really just messaged people on Facebook. That was easy. That was definitely the easiest way to find tour operators. So we started doing that literally a week before we left.
I think I would say, so obviously exploring Ulaanbaatar, you kind of do that on your own, so you don't really need to book anything.
No.
The day trip that we did to Turals with a private driver, we did that
We booked that
on
probably
a whim.
2 days in advance.
Yeah, and that was pretty easy. The tour, I would say, that is probably what you would want to start off with booking as early as possible.
Yeah, whenever you book your trip to Mongolia, start doing that.
Yeah, the tough part with tours in Mongolia is the fact that there's not a ton of tours happening, like not a ton of people like filling up these tours.
Because Mongolia tourism isn't super developed.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton of people there.
Well, yeah.
like tourists visiting.
Yeah, so what we found that was really like the easiest way to go about it is to join the Facebook group. I think there's like I forgot the name of the Mongolian.
Search Mongolian travel Facebook groups.
And then we found a lot of people would like post that, they're going on this date, they want to see this, who else wants to join?
Yeah.
And then they kind of form like a larger party, so it's not just like solo and couples, and then when you have a bigger group, like we got a group of 5 together, and then we were able to connect with a tour operator
and say, hey, we have 5 people who want to do this tour. Can you make it happen? What's the price? So I think that's a good way to go about it. If you approach a tour operator with a larger group, you're going to get better pricing.
Yeah.
So I think, in terms of planning, it's almost that connection with other people who have similar travel dates to you. That's almost the most important part of planning the bigger expeditions on your travels.
Scheduled departures, that's the word I'm looking for. Or words I'm looking for, because sometimes the tours don't have scheduled departures.
That's the word.
Because there's not enough people like filling up the van.
Totally.
So you have to, like, once they get enough people, they can kind of create a tour.
Yeah.
So you can do that really early, but then it might be hard to get people to fill that van. So the sooner, like the closer you get to the date, that might be a little bit easier.
Might be a little better, yeah.
Just start your research early.
Yeah, and for our truck rental, we only figured all that out within a week of renting the actual truck, probably less than that. Oh, how do you go about booking your tour?
Oh, that's what we did.
We kind of just answered that question.
If you want to know, I guess, like our private driver for Toronto National Park, that's in the video.
The description of the road.
I can't even remember the guy's name. I think it was like...
It was a cool name.
Zorig or something like that.
Something like that.
And then for our Gobi Desert tour, just like if you're looking for recommendations, we went with Mongolia, Four Seasons Travel.
Yep.
They were awesome.
They were great.
They were really, really lovely. Great people.
And then for our truck rental...
For our truck rental...
We did a company called Eternal Nomads. And again, in the description of each of the videos about those things, their contact info is in there. So if you guys want to use the same people, go ahead and do that. What are some things you wish you knew before doing a tour?
Oh my goodness, so many things.
So many things. I think something that I wish I had known is, like, I'm not a huge meat lover. And I think in retrospect, had I brought like a hot sauce or a ketchup or something, that would have been amazing. Maybe some more salt and pepper. The food is really meat heavy in Mongolia, so if you're not like a massive meat lover like me, maybe bring one of your favorite spices.
Extra condiments.
Yeah, because you're really, like, you're being cooked for in the middle of nowhere, right? So, so you're gonna get camping food.
Also, I would add that if you are gonna be driving across Mongolia on a tour, be prepared for some really long distances.
Yeah, Mongolia is huge.
It's huge, and like we were spending anywhere between like 2 hours in the car a day to like 6 or 7 hours in the car. There's lots of breaks in between.
Yeah, but you're driving for a lot of it, so prepare for that. Download some podcasts or some music ahead of time, some shows, whatever you like to do.
Bring some snacks.
Bring some snacks. You can get snacks on the road?
You can get snacks on the road, that's right.
Yeah, we stopped at stopped at lots of little shops along the way, and we'd pick up whatever snack any of us needed.
Chips and chocolate and whatever.
Coffees, extra water. Take a look at what your tour provides in terms of water. I think ours was about 1.5 liters per person per day. So we also just stocked up and we brought extra 4-liter jugs. We just kind of bought them as we went through the tour and needed them. So those things are easy to get, and we found that you could actually even pay a lot of that stuff by card in the middle of nowhere. But bring cash.
Cool.
For your tour for sure as well.
Definitely bring cash.
Yeah.
We also found there was a lot of downtime. Even outside, like, once you arrive at your ger.
That's true.
There's a lot of downtime to just like enjoy the scenery. And
get to know your tour mates. Like, obviously it's a social thing, so it's really fun to be able to just like hang out with the new people you get to meet.
We brought a deck of cards, which is awesome.
Yes, highly recommend bringing something like that. Deck of cards, frisbee whatever you're into.
There's that fun bone game my gosh. There's a Mongolian game. They use animal bones, which is kind of cool too.
Another thing is get ready to pee in the wilderness.
Oh, that's a big one.
Pee in nature.
Yeah.
So in between like ger sites, we rarely had proper toilets. And there's nothing in Mongolia, right? Like, you're in steppe, so it's land.
There's no trees.
There's no bushes even.
There's no bushes. If you're wondering where on earth you would pee when you're out here and there's nothing around you, the easy answer is anywhere around you. It's pretty easy to just find a spot, but it can be a little bit awkward if you time it wrong and someone does roll on by.
As a woman, I brought with me like a long sleeve button up shirt, and I honestly would just wrap that around my waist and like let it fall behind me, because that is as much cover as you're gonna get in the middle of nowhere, guys. So bring a scarf or something that you can wrap around yourself and give you a little cover if you want.
Be prepared for that. I know in some places, like in some tours, like more luxury tours, there's a lot more access to like nicer camps with
but we had toilets at our camps.
No, we had
toilets at our camps. What we didn't usually have was showers at our camps. But even the luxury tours, you're gonna get showers, and I guess our toilets were like mostly squatters.
Outhouse.
Yeah, it was outhouse style. So if you go in the more expensive, nicer ones, you'll get like flushing toilets and running water out of a sink. We didn't get those things. So bring wet wipes if you're going on the budget end, like we did. Highly recommend that.
Wet wipes are a must, because Showers, yeah.
Showers are rare.
Might not happen every day.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. In terms of like electricity on the tours, so some places, like some GERs we stayed at, you had access to an outlet, but it was kind of rare. I would not suggest relying on it. So bring battery banks.
Yeah.
And then also, like really where we charged most of our devices was on the drives, like during the driving through the car.
Through the car, or like even like at a restaurant.
Oh,
we'd,
yeah.
like, try to use one of the plugs,
Yeah.
especially because we were filming and stuff too, so like
We had a
needed
lot to charge.
But yeah, just be prepared to like not have a lot of like electronic, like electricity access.
Yeah. So definitely bring some battery banks. Another question we got is, in which part of Mongolia is it better to have a guide and which is okay to do alone? So I think
Good question.
I would really recommend, having been on the Gobi Desert tour, I would highly recommend getting a guide for that. Because you're going really into the middle of nowhere. If you got into, like if you popped a tire or something out there, or your car broke down and you're by yourself, you might not see people for days.
I know a lot of people were talking like on those Facebook groups asking how it's possible to do that by themselves, never been to Mongolia before, and they want to go driving in the desert.
I wouldn't recommend doing it without a guide, and honestly, specifically without a driver, because you are just on natural roads forever.
There's like no signage.
no signs,
There's
there's no
and you can't even
markings.
like navigating. It's like, oh, just stay on this road. It's like navigating out there's like, I swear the driver just uses that mountain and that mountain, and there's a pass between that.
Somewhere
That's how
between
they do
that
it.
is where we need to go.
So I wouldn't recommend doing anything Gobi related by yourself.
No, it's just the distances are too far and the space is too vast. You're gonna get lost.
What we did do by ourselves was the central Mongolia driving, and like we went from Ulaanbaatar to Karakorum, and then to Ugi Lake, and we did that all by ourselves, and then back.
I think it was like 800 kilometers or something over 3 days. That was great on our own, because mostly we had quite a lot of paved roads, which was obviously helpful and easy
for navigating.
And for like risk of breaking down. We had people around if something happened to us.
Yeah. And we were never like far away from like a town or from a city, but we were still able to do it all ourselves. And we even did a little bit of like off-roading by ourselves in the Land Cruiser. But like not off-roading in a sense that like you're on this open field with like no sign of a road and you're making your own path. We kind of did our off-roading like
had dirt.
It's more like a dirt trail, and like it was easy to navigate.
Yeah.
So
it was hard
Central
to get
Mongolia,
lost.
that area was really good for us.
And then you're so close to Ulaanbaatar, so if something really does happen, like you can get help within the day. Whereas like going to Gobi, you're 5 days away from the major city. Like that's far.
I remember looking at the map and calculating like at the worst possible spot for us to like break down without like a paved road nearby was like 30 kilometers away.
So we would have been fine.
So we would have like, it would have been walkable in a day.
I will say, I think just in general terms, having done a tour first to see what is Mongolia like, what are our amenities like once you really leave Ulaanbaatar, that to me was the most important learning that allowed us to then feel confident to get the truck and do it by ourselves. Had we not had the Gobi Desert tour first to get acquainted with Mongolia,
We've been a little reckless.
I don't think we would have been a very smart decision. But once we knew what that was like, it was easy to then go and like create our own route. So that's, I think
that's a good balance.
Yeah. How easy is it to rent a car? This is an excellent question. I would say not that easy.
Easy if you have the money, not so easy if you're on a budget.
Yeah, so we really looked into like going with like budget or Avis or whatever and renting like a proper car.
Yeah. But they're so expensive.
They're so expensive. I don't know why.
Like redonkulous expensive.
Redonkulous.
It's like not even something we would entertain.
It was not an option for us. So that's why we went with a local tour operator and we rented their vehicle from them. That comes with a lot more risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, so firstly, they wanted to do, with that local tour operator, they had asked for $1,000 damage deposit, which could be like in cash. And that could be like really scary for a lot of them. It was scary for us too, and we were able to negotiate it down to like $500 damage deposit, which was still like super scary.
It's scary to hand someone $500 and be like, I hope you don't, I hope you give this back to me. Obviously we were gonna return the truck, but we were a little scared that maybe they'd be like, oh no, like here's this and this, like that's wrong, and that was your fault, and then they just keep our money.
And like a lot
that didn't happen.
And a lot can happen too. Like even like if stuff that would be our fault, a lot can happen when you're on those roads because the roads are kind of not so great with potholes.
Yeah, there's a lot of potholes in Mongolia.
So yeah, but we decided to take the risk.
Yes, we did, and it worked for us.
And it worked out really, really well.
Yeah.
And the car that we had was a Toyota Land Cruiser. It came with like a whole bunch of stuff, like camping equipment and chairs and all that.
And the sleeping equipment, like the rooftop tent with like sleeping bags.
Yeah.
It came with all the things you needed for that.
I think we mentioned earlier it was like $110 US a day, which was like such a steal.
I mean, compared to renting a car, it was such a steal. I think renting a car was going to cost us like over $1,000 USD for 3 days.
For 3 days.
Like wild amounts of money.
They also said, like, hard to confirm this because we can't read Mongolian script, but the car also had insurance. And I don't know if that was just the car insurance or is like insured for us too.
We have our own travel and health insurance on the side separately that we made sure we had. But like the car company, they had all these things, but again, we couldn't read the contract very well.
Yeah.
Some of it was in English. So we did our best, but I would say renting a car can be challenging. If you want the super safe route of like using Enterprise, you're gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You just pay for it.
If you are comfortable with trying out like more local company and it's more of like a private like exchange, then you could try with a company.
Eternal Nomads that we used. We had a good experience. Other people online, like they do have problems with renting a car from some local operators, so keep that in mind. We have seen some people say stories of like the cars breaking down all the time and they're not getting great help from people, so that definitely could happen. So I would just, our recommendation is do as much research as you can.
Yeah, I would make sure that like the company that you're renting from, like it's nice to know if they have like a fleet of vehicles that they rent, so like this is really their business, and this is not just like, you know, my uncle's car, he's not using it. You can go use it.
I'm gonna give it to you.
You can if you want to. Like
it's probably affordable. Okay, someone asks, how were the roads and how did you navigate on your own? So the roads, we've said I think before, potholes are very common depending on the part of Mongolia you're in. The road conditions I'd say were like decent, but not great.
I remember thinking that like it's so beautiful out there, but it's so hard to take it in while you're driving because you have to look at the potholes. So that is a plus with going on a tour. Someone does all the driving.
You just look out the window. And navigation, so we downloaded the map for the region before we left, because another question actually we have here is how is your data connection and service? So data comes in and out in Mongolia just depending on where you are. Outside of Ulaanbaatar, of course, at the capital city, it's wonderful and great. So as a result, we made sure we downloaded the Google Maps offline version before leaving, and then we used Google Maps for the whole thing. When we were like doing our own tours and within the city and stuff, we used Google Maps.
It was perfect, and like we said earlier, like it was easy in the section of central Mongolia that we were traveling in because I could see all the roads. I can tell you right now that when we were on the Gobi Desert tour, there was absolutely no roads mentioned on Google Maps where we were driving.
That's why we recommend you get a driver.
So you cannot use Google Maps for navigating.
You wouldn't know what you're gonna be up against at all. Which are the places to avoid as there is nothing to see or do? I thought this was a really interesting question. Honestly, everything we did we would recommend doing. The only thing that did come to mind when I saw this question is that we had at one point debated going to Karakoram, which is like the ancient capital of Mongolia. We had debated going there as a trip from Ulaanbaatar, like taking a local bus, which you can do. But honestly, we did end up visiting Karakoram, and I wouldn't say it's worth its own trip from Ulaanbaatar.
So I would say like you have to bundle Karakoram with like
it was a great stopping point on our journey, like through central Mongolia. But I wouldn't make the trip there just to go there
because we obviously have heard of Karakoram. It's like such a big
part of Mongolia.
Big part of Mongolia, and we were thinking like going there specifically for that, but
no, I'm glad we didn't in the end. I think to get there it's like a long local bus ride, and I think it would have taken like 3 days.
Although
to get there and back.
I will mention, I think in our last video, when we saw Karakoram, I think we may have like understood it wrong. Like we thought that the temple part was the city.
It was the whole city. So we've had some comments from some of you guys. Thanks for commenting that I think we thought that the temple complex was the whole city, like the whole ancient city, because it's in ruins, the city. You can't actually really see it. So maybe we missed something. There was also a small museum there, actually, and we never even went into it because we went into some museums on our Gobi Desert tour, and like, let's just say there's not that much to see or learn. So
it wasn't like
museums.
It wasn't like super engaging, the museums, and we've seen a whole bunch, and we're like, I don't know if I want another museum. I'm sorry, we're human. I'm sorry.
Just wasn't our preference. But if you love history, maybe that museum's for you. What kind of clothing should I bring? This is a great question because man, did we get this wrong. So going to Mongolia, we expected that going to the Gobi Desert would be cold at night. I don't know why we expected that.
Every time we go to the desert, we're always freezing.
At night. so cold.
Yeah.
Hot during the day, very cold at night. Anyways, we could not have been more wrong. So we had brought all this like warm clothes, and we didn't need it at all in June. So obviously, depending on the time of year you go, Mongolia is one of the coldest countries in the world. So bundle up if you're there in winter. If you're not, it was lovely.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if I would have packed any different though. Like I would have made sure, like still make sure that like we have all the cold stuff just in case we did go cold
I
stuff.
had too much cold stuff.
But you never really know. Honestly, the Gurs themselves, I feel like they were good at temperature regulation, but not like excellent. So if it's really hot outside, it can be pretty stuffy in the Gur.
Yeah, and so you sleep with the door closed, which was too bad. I kind of wish we could have just opened it, but then sand and bugs and stuff at night would have come in.
Yeah, night was pretty hot.
Nights were warm. Like I expected to be freezing at night, and we weren't. So you don't need anything wild. I mean, if you go in June like we did. But Mongolia's temperature changes so drastically from season to season and month to month, so definitely just take a look at when you're going. Should I bring all of my camping gear or can I get things there? You could definitely get things there.
Yeah.
We visited the black market in Ulaanbaatar when we first arrived.
Narantul market.
Yeah.
It's a cool market.
Cool market, and you can get
Ulaanbaatar,
anything. Honestly, you can get anything. So that, like, you could definitely arrive and buy stuff.
You could buy like a whole camping.
The whole
tents.
Sleeping bags.
You want a barbecue?
Yeah, everything's there.
You know, I've never been inside an Amazon fulfillment center, but I kind of feel like it would look like this, where they literally have everything.
You're probably gonna pay tourist pricing, just as a heads up, if you're a foreigner. But yeah, if you need to get camping equipment, you can. Again though, with our truck rental, we had everything included, so we didn't purchase anything. Can you get by with English only?
I would say yes.
Kind of. It's kind of.
Yes, I would say yes in the city. In Ulaanbaatar, it's easier.
It's easier.
It was still tough in some restaurants ordering.
Definitely was.
Like pointing and, you know, like hand signs was definitely
the way to go.
Yeah. And
but like our hosts for Airbnbs and hotels and stuff,
hotels were good.
we usually were able to find at least one person who spoke English.
I think if you're, anybody in hospitality, it'd be easy.
Yeah, easier.
Easier, but in some places it was
challenging. And outside of the capital, then you definitely most people just speak Mongolian.
Yeah.
So we would recommend downloading the Mongolian language. Like we just use Google Translate. So we download the Mongolian language before leaving service. But I will say, like, Google Translate isn't awesome in terms of Mongolian to English, and we still really struggled. Like I would use my phone and use the picture option on Google to try and like translate, let's say, a menu, and it didn't really work that well. So it was difficult.
And actually, you know what's funny? The hardest part was when you have Google translate it and you want to like say the words. It was like in Cyrillic, so like it's hard to even understand like what sounds do I make to say this word.
Yeah, to try and like if we wanted to say a word in Mongolian, like it was just challenging to figure out how to say anything. So yeah, it was a little harder, but obviously totally doable. We don't speak Mongolian and we are fine.
Yeah.
Cash or card. So cash is accepted everywhere, and I would highly recommend getting some tugruk.
Cash is definitely.
You need it.
Definitely need it.
But in UB, in Ulaanbaatar, card was accepted like everywhere.
Yeah.
And outside of UB, honestly, it was still accepted a ton.
Yeah, especially like the restaurants, like the more like. Yeah, I felt like they always accepted credit card.
Yeah, even like the little convenience stores that we'd stop at on our Gobi Desert trip to buy water and snacks or whatever, they almost always accepted card.
I honestly thought it was gonna be like more of a cash culture than like solely cash culture, but like it was actually like
outside of UB.
Outside of UB.
Yeah, but it was fun.
No, but I would still like to have cash.
What are some final tips for planning a trip to Mongolia? Do it.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That's the best tip.
Honestly,
it's like I think I feel like Mongolia doesn't get enough like time in the spotlight for being like how like amazingly beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I knew that. I remember thinking that like I knew Mongolia's gonna be beautiful, but like when we were actually there, I like it. It didn't even register like this is like way above where the bar was, or I thought the bar was gonna be from Mongolia. And there's no real way to like understand it unless you're like there.
We've never been to a place like Mongolia, like truly.
Yeah.
It was one of a kind. It was just exceptional. I guess maybe some other like generic tips are that, because it's huge and there's such expanse, be ready for like not too many amenities, or maybe like, we did a lot of squatting. We did a lot of like outhouses. a lot of baby wipe showers, and it's fine with us.
You're definitely more roughing it.
Yeah, it's for sure.
You could pay.
You could pay to not
rough it. But even like at our budget, which I think does pretty well in different parts of different countries around the world. In particular, our budget applied to Mongolia. We felt like it was a bit more roughing it than I was initially expecting.
Yes, I agree with you. Especially considering the cost of like living in Ulaanbaatar, it felt really affordable. And then we left there, and I was like, whoa, it's a lot more expensive to be out here.
When we were filming this, someone did ask if it was possible to travel, like how was it for traveling, getting around for seniors?
Okay.
And around Mongolia, I'm not sure if that's really a final tip, but like,
yeah, that's a good question.
Just a quick question. I would say, yeah, totally fine, because a lot of it is sightseeing. Ulaanbaatar, obviously, is super sightseeing. So if you're a senior with mobility issues,
or just an older adult, I think
probably the hardest thing would have been going up the sand dunes.
Yeah, that was so hard. That might not be something you literally have to just physically get yourself like a kilometer up a sand dune, and it was very challenging. Yeah. That honestly, I think would be the only thing I'd say that would probably be on my radar for something that an older adult would have a bit of a harder time doing.
Yeah, other than that, like enjoying the expansiveness, enjoying the sightseeing, enjoying the gers, enjoying like the camels.
I guess maybe comfort-wise. So in the vehicles, you're a little squishy. We were for our Gobi Desert tour.
We were squishy.
We were a little squishy. So maybe comfort-wise for that, that's something to think about. You're in a car for many, many hours in a day, generally in Mongolia, and the gers were pretty hard. I will say, like the beds in the gers, I found them to be like, it's you're on like a board and then there's a small mattress above it. Yeah. But like I get sore, and I remember waking up sore the first day and be like, wow, I feel like I slept on a piece of hardwood with a topper.
I've heard some people like bring like an air mattress to put on that. And maybe that's a good way to do it.
I mean, if you need that to be comfortable.
If you want to stick to a budget, but like want to have a decent sleep, maybe get an air mattress to put on top of like the ger cot thingy.
And again, this is because I think our budget made that we were in the gers that matched our budget. But you could absolutely get nicer gers. So I think that maybe as a senior, it might be better to just put a little bit more money into your tours and get maybe a little bit more comfortable vehicle and a bit more comfort for your bed at night.
Yeah. We hope we convinced you guys that Mongolia has gotta be on your bucket list because it's amazing. It's a beautiful country.
Yeah, we will 1000% be back one day. I'm so sure we're gonna be back one day.
I'm kind of glad that we didn't do the north and also didn't really do much of the far east or far west because
we have so much more to explore.
Get like that Toyota Land Cruiser again, and then go do some more within reason, with good caution.
We'll be back one day. If you guys have more questions, something that we didn't answer, feel free to pop them in the comments, and we will do our best to respond to any more questions you have down there. And if you book a trip to Mongolia, just have the most amazing time. Then know that we are very jealous. Okay, thanks for watching, you guys.
Bye.